Chapter 2 Super Evangelion. Guys, Asuka said, how about you go change your clothes? Shinji and Toji had just arrived on the top deck of the command center and were still in their school uniforms. The two young men met the suggestion with confused looks. No, Shinji replied. I think I'd rather finish this conversation first. They were talking about Ava 01 getting refitted with the new restraint armor like Ava 02 and the series 0.0 Avas. There's no way we're calling it Super, Toji said. Hey, what are you laughing at? Asuka snickered. She'd already changed out of her school clothes and into a tank top, and her bare shoulders shook. Super Evangelion? Dun 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 dun. Asuka's rendition of a superhero's fanfare echoed throughout the quiet command center, and several technicians on the middle and lower decks looked up. Some even chuckled. Well, I think it's great, Misato, Asuka said. It sounds utterly idiotic. Perfect for Unit 1. Let's go with that name, but just for Unit 1. Sitting in her chair on the top deck, Misato looked genuinely confused. She hadn't been joking about the name. Shinji and Toji were not amused. Is the name that weird? Misato asked. I thought it was pretty common to take the old name and put super in front when a weapon gets an upgrade. It's not weird, Asuka replied cheerfully. It's perfect. Toji jabbed a finger at her. Shut up. Try developing your brain for a change instead of your chest. Huh. Well, where's your brain, huh? Did you leave it in your old arms and legs? She thrust her body forward so that Toji's extended finger was a hair's breadth away from touching the swell on her tank top. Toji panicked and pulled his hand back. Asuka snorted. That's not fair, he complained. You stink of sweat. Go take a shower. Better make it a cold one. The red-haired girl gave a mean-spirited laugh. The boys were exercising in the facility's gym. They were both self-conscious of their actions. Shinji had chosen a new destiny for the world in ways both monumental and small, from thwarting the Human Instrumentality Project to relocating Kaji's watermelon patch. Before beginning his workout, Toji had fine-tuned the sizing of his cybernetic limbs and double-checked their synchronization. Toji's body had suffered severe injuries in the fight against Angel Bardiel. The doctors had replaced his heart with one grown in a lab, but they'd given up on regenerating his arms and legs. The first time they'd attempted to attach a regrown set of limbs, Bardiel, from out of nowhere, had re-manifested somehow, and the Angel's contagion had shown signs of returning. Apparently, the intact form of the human body, or that of an Evangelion, could trigger the Angel's activation. In the end, the greatest minds at Nerve had been unable to eliminate the risk of Bardiel reactivating within Toji's body, and so the boy was given mechanical limbs. Toji was struck from the pilot roster, but since he was going to be under strict Nerve surveillance for the foreseeable future no matter what, he decided to take an active role in the organization. He was granted high-level security clearance and began working as a liaison between the pilots. If nothing else, he needed the money. Maintaining robotic limbs wasn't cheap. Hey Shinji, Toji said, have you seen the SSDF's giant robot? You mean the one in Gotemba? It's about half as tall as Jet alone and built like a tank. I hear it's even stronger than Jet alone, and it can fly too. The robot was designed to combat individual large-scale threats. It had been named Akashima after an old word for typhoon. Unlike Evangelions, which grew into humanoid shapes for reasons not understood by science, the N2 reactor-powered Akashima was humanoid by design. Its legs could traverse any terrain, and its arms allowed it to hold weapons, to fire in any direction, and, at least theoretically, to pin down an unruly opponent in close combat. Its body offered more than mere structural support. It provided a frame for protective armor and could withstand unexpected impacts if necessary. Depending on its configuration, the Akashima could even fly, which improved the Japan Strategic Self-Defense Force's ability to respond to developing situations quickly. But most incredibly, the robot could do all of this without external support. It must be nice to be able to fly, Shinji said. The thing can't fly high, Toji responded, a bit defensively. It relies on the ground effect. Sure, but I bet it can cruise really fast. Don't sound so excited. Publicly, sure. It's an anti-angel mech designed to support the Evas, but, Toji lowered his voice, despite no one being around to overhear, a lot of folks are wondering if maybe it's designed to get rid of the Evas. Shinji didn't follow. I know the Evas aren't exactly popular given how expensive they are to run, but he suddenly understood. Oh, is that why you think the robot's been stationed so close to us? After all the trouble the SSDF caused in the battle at Nerve HQ, Misato-san went to a lot of effort to get the Japanese government to acknowledge the Hakone Caldera as UN leased territory. Remember, we're an extraterritorial zone. Maybe the governments on the outside don't like it. Maybe they're looking for a way to take it back. Maybe. Does that mean they're watching us from the Caldera's rim? By possessing 6 EVA units, Unit 01, Type F, Unit 00, Type F, Unit 02, and the 3 Series 0.0 units stationed in orbit, Nerve Japan had arguably become the most powerful military force on the planet. 4 of the EVAs, Unit 00, Type F, and Unit 02 excluded, had S2 engines. Unit 01 had ingested one when the EVA went berserk against the Angel Zeruel, and the Series 0.0 units had been outfitted with engines harvested from the mass production EVAs after the battle at Nerve HQ. These 4 EVAs could now operate in combat nearly indefinitely. That's why Unit 1 is getting upgraded to Super Evangelion, Toji said. There'll be no super anything, Toji. I'm sure this restraint armor upgrade ideal will get dropped. It's not suited for Unit 1. Right. It's more for Unit 2 and Unit 0, seeing as how Soryu and Ayanami have developed their Eva's bodies over time, with their waist narrowing and their, Toji gestured to indicate how the shape of the Eva's bodies had changed, but he fell into an awkward silence as he realized his motion also mirrored how Asuka's and Ayanami's bodies had developed. Evas could alter their own physical configuration. Though constructed out of inorganic matter, every now and then, the giants behaved as if they were living beings. Sometimes these changes came swiftly and drastically, like when they suffered heavy damage while in synchronization with their pilot, but other times the transformation came gradually, while in their cages at night, accompanied by a grinding noise. This phenomenon caused no end of grief to the maintenance teams, but Ibuki Maya, current chief of the science and engineering divisions, speculated that the process was part of the Eva's natural development. In the 3 years since the battle at Nerve HQ, this gradual growth became more noticeable. The mysterious presence inside each Eva came to the surface only rarely now, and the pilots themselves had begun to influence the physical characteristics of their Evas. This had most strongly manifested in Asuka and Eva 02. Azuka's body had developed, not just in the volume of her bust, but in her shoulders, arms, waist, legs, into a graceful and slender physique. When she walked by, red hair bouncing, hips swaying, utterly self-assured, anyone might turn their head and wonder, is she a model? But it was more than the passing of time that had matured her. Her confidence had grown. She used to claim that she was the best pilot, her boast a manifestation of her insecurity. These days, though, she still spoke harshly to others. She was harshest on herself. I won't be careless, not with my missions or in my day-to-day life. Her acerbity had been a source of her stress, but it had also led to a sense of fulfillment. Her growth, both physical and mental, had changed the shape and structure of her Eva. At a certain point, Eva 02's restraint armor no longer fit despite the best efforts of the mechanics. The armor was removed, and new, properly fitting Stage 2 restraint armor was created. After the replacement armor showed improved performance, it was installed on Ayanami's Eva 00, though not the Unit 00 Type F, as the 3 orbiting Series 0.0 units, which had been landed one by one at Tanegashima Space Center for the refitting before returning to orbit. Ayanami had grown too, if not to the same extent as Asuka. Still, a pilot's self-identity determined their Eva's form. Eva 00 could have fit into just about any new armor, since even after 3 years, Rei's sense of identity remained stunted. By the way, Toji said to Shinji, why are you avoiding Ayanami? The sudden change of topic caught Shinji off guard. Toji was referring to the Ayanami who had been with them since the battle at Nerve HQ, Tross. In the wake of the battle, the fact that Ayanami had been cloned from Shinji's mother became public knowledge. For many, this served as confirmation of a vague but firmly held suspicion. As such, the truth was quickly accepted. Shinji struggled with the revelation for several days, but ultimately told Rei that she was her own person. That should have settled the matter, and yet... "I'm not avoiding her," Shinji said. "If I see her, I say hello, and... oh right, we talk about work too." "Yeah?" From what Toji had observed, Shinji was lying. "Yeah." "If you say so," Toji said. "All this talk of new armor reminds me. That huge one is still in the underground strata where Ritsuko-san left it, right? It's high spec, but I'd bet the armor's even heavier than it looks. At least as heavy as a Type F. Plus, it's lacking in so many..." Shinji cut himself off and peered at Toji quizzically. "Hang on. Your clearance doesn't allow you down there." Irritated, Toji looked away. "If you don't want it, then it's gonna be stage 2 for you." "I don't see a problem," Asuka said, appearing behind Shinji. She must have heard Toji talking about the stage 2 armor. "You're skinny enough. You fit into my plug suit before, didn't you?" She lifted Shinji's shirt up, only to be annoyed by what she found. Since when did that little brat's back get so wide? He even had muscles now. "How long ago was that?" Shinji asked. "And why are you mad at me?" "Shut up," Asuka crossed her arms. "Where's Ayanami?" Toji asked. "She said there was a student council meeting after school today."